at 6 p.m. And if everyone could stand for a moment of silence and our Pledge of Allegiance. We have a flag.
I do.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call?
Roll call, please, Camilla. You're not coming through.
Oops.
Camilla, try again. Mr. Baker.
Here.
Mrs. Bream.
Here.
Mr. Francis.
Here.
Mr. Hoff.
Here.
Mr. Hoover. He's still hooking in. Mrs. Irwin Adams.
Here.
Mr. Johnston.
Here.
Mr. Cruz.
Here.
Dr. Malloy.
Here.
All right. So the only one who hasn't hooked in yet is Rick. I'm going to give him a buzz, but Sharon, if you'd like to introduce Gary Marshall to start, we'll roll.
Okay, Gary Marshall is going to be representing Reynolds, and go ahead, Gary.
Good evening. Just want to say, first of all, the health and safety of all of our persons on the project remains our first priority. We performed a Zoom meeting with the contractors on Friday morning to review the overall status of operations, moving forward towards a project restart concerns.
That'll work.
Contractors were requested to submit a detailed individual project trade-specific safety plan, detailing how they plan to protect the workers in the event of resuming construction. They were asked to start assembling a list of critical items needing addressed upon resuming the work and any information on postponed manufacturing and/or delivery schedules. We have another Zoom meeting scheduled for Wednesday morning to review all the above mentioned items and review updated information. The contractors will be able to provide a hand washing facility with hot water, one per floor upon returning construction. Each trade will be responsible for sanitizing each area and tools and equipment they'll be working with. All the offices either have been or will be sanitized before they're occupied again. The team is exploring the possibility of restricted work hours, possibly a 4 10-hour day schedule, give people 3 days off on the weekends to recover, and or possibly 2 shifts to minimize the amount of people on site at any given time. We're preparing for a daily list of workers on the site each day based on the information we received from the prime contractors. And as always, we'll note in the daily log the actual work performed. Visitors to the site will be restricted to certain arrival times so we control access to the site. The entrance to the site will be restricted to select areas in order to ensure only cleared persons in the area. As this remains a very fluid situation, very much is unknown at this time on how it relates to the effect of material and equipment procurement. A lot of the manufacturers are shut down, so once we resume work, we could possibly be looking at 6 to maybe 8 weeks to get the material that has not already been manufactured. And just want to be assured, everybody, the team is committed to resuming activity on the site as long as it can be safely done in strict adherence to CDC guidelines. So that's the status right now. We have more questions. We have answers at the moment. And we're hoping Wednesday to follow up on some of these and be able to start putting together a plan. So I'll take any questions if anybody has them.
So Wednesday, you're meeting with the contractors again?
It'll be a Zoom meeting, yes.
And no idea of when they would start working again?
No, ma'am. We're still waiting on information from the contractors. Several of the contractors still have their information in legal, waiting on information back from legal and working on their safety plans.
Okay.
Has anyone said they won't come back at all?
Not at the moment. There's been a little bit of reluctance. I know that at least 2 of the contractors have polled their workers to see who is willing to come back and who's not. You know, obviously this is going to be a slow ramp up. It's not like we're going to turn around the very first day and have 100 people back on site. We cannot accommodate that. We're going to try to work sequence as much as we can to keep things flowing as per the original schedule. But depending on the manpower available and the materials, we may not be able to follow that sequencing. So anything we get done is that much that will not have to be done down the road. So,
All right, what about inspections? Are they still gonna do inspections?
MDIA, the inspection agency, is still available, and so is Hillis Carnes, the geotech engineer. So yes, both of those firms are available. So we're doing our best to put something together that's going to fly.
Any questions?
Well, just a couple of additional statements. In my conversations with JCR, I made the point that if it's going to cost us more, because obviously we could be looking at FEMA reimbursement, but it would still cost us money. I said, if it's going to be more expensive to fire up now than it will be to double out or do other options later, I'd like to see the options so we can ensure we're done on time, or we're done in time to get into school, but not at an exorbitant overcharge because of the fact that we have to do a whole bunch of things just to make sure the site's safe. So they're looking at logistics and how that's going to work and what the elements of that are going to be.
Wow, okay. Any
Gary,
more?
oh, sorry.
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
we should probably go over these now because they'll be on the April agenda in a couple of weeks. I believe we have, is it 2 or 3 change orders right now?
We just have another one that just came in that I can get on the agenda for the next facilities meeting.
Of the change orders I'm aware of right now, and these have been sent out to facilities, there is one which is for gas to run the temporary heat for approximately, was it 30 days or 20 days?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Because of the waiting for the valves and taking care of the code issues. And the price on that, it's still being what's the word I'm looking for? Still being examined for accuracy and whether it's appropriate, but that's approximately 33,000.
Yes, it already came back revised once. We're down to 30,000 and some change. I don't have the exact number, but it's still under review. I'm waiting on some more verification from the contractor.
And the other one is for 13,000 for storage of chiller units. And can you explain that one to the board, please, Gary?
Yes, that chiller was originally scheduled to be installed in spring of 19, but due to the delay from Penelec getting the new power feed in, the area where the chillers were to be placed was occupied by the existing switchgear. So that the chiller units were put in storage under insurance, and so that means double handling. That's crane to offload them and reload them at the storage facility, and then getting them to the building. That was really something that was beyond anybody's control. So I don't know that we have an out on that one. And so far that pricing appears to be accurate.
So those are the 2 significant change orders that we'll see later in April.
Yes.
Any questions for Gary?
The gas you said was to run temporary heat.
Yes.
What gas?
Okay. The original intent was to have the permanent system up and running on X date, which I don't have those in front of me. Because of the boiler issues with the check valve and the gas regulator, we spent roughly another 25 days in temporary heat that would not have been needed could we fired up those boilers when they were ready to.
Where did we get the heat? I mean, get natural gas? Is that what you're talking about?
The temporary heat was 3 diesel powered heating units that we had, and the HVAC contractor owned those up until the point where the permanent system could be put online. When we were ready to put the permanent system online is when the issue arose with the natural gas regulator to adjust the pressure down, and the check valve came from the boiler inspector's comments. So therefore, we couldn't start those units up until that material was received and installed.
So they had temporary units that they put in there that they're charging us for.
Yes, ma'am.
The units were in heating the building, but the contractor's only responsible to the point where they could be turned over and we could turn the heating plant on. So instead of heating it a month on our fuel bills, we have to cover his costs for the fuel to run the temporary heat for that additional month.
Whose fault was it about the check valves?
I don't know that anybody's fault. That was more of a code interpretation, is my understanding. Now, on the regular gas regulator, I believe that would have been an oversight on the mechanical engineer, because it was noted in some earlier emails that we would have to adjust that pressure from 9 PSI down to 2 PSI, but that never made it to the drawings. The check valve was simply just an interpretation. The mechanical engineer interpreted it one way. The boiler inspector interpreted it a different way. And you can't win anything when you fight with those guys. So we had no option other to comply on that part. But I do have the billing broke down between what was responsible or what the extra heat was incurred for the gas regulator. That was actually corrected first. The check valves came later. So I can break those out to some extent as far as what belongs to the gas regulator and what belongs to the check valves. I kept track of my daily tickets accordingly until the time where the gas regulator was corrected.
All righty, any other questions for Gary at this point? We are going to have a facilities meeting. Go ahead, sorry.
Can I weigh in real quick?
Sure.
I know I joined a little bit late. Gary, what is your overall feeling or sense about how the contractor is with this?
As far as restarting the work, Rick?
Yes.
We've got some mixed signals. I know, as I said earlier, a couple of them at least have surveyed their employees to find out who is willing to come back to work if we can get the safety plans in place. But right now, that's kind of up in the air. It's a little premature. We're hoping Wednesday to have a little more information when we have our job conference meeting. But nobody can start back until we get our safety plan in place. The GC is responsible for overall safety on the site. So their outside safety consultant is putting together a plan. But we are requesting each one of the contractors to have their own plan in place also. And then we will coordinate those plans accordingly across the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, at this point, I would say we're at least a week or two from getting anybody on site, but that's just speculation. Depends on how quick we can get all the questions answered.
Thanks, Gary.
You're welcome, sir.
What if one of the contractors or one or more of the contractors tell us they're not going to show up?
We will proceed with whatever work we can do without them on site. As I said, we won't necessarily be able to follow the sequencing, but there are things that can be done regardless of, certain areas already have the ceiling grid in the corridors. If the sprinkler heads are in and the lighting is in, then we can go ahead and drop ceiling tile. Once we get that ceiling tile in, we can go ahead and start on the quartz flooring in that area. It's not going to make for a smooth flow of work, but again, anything we can get done is that much that less we have to deal with down the road. I have approximately 16 rooms. If I can get a sprinkler fitter and an electrician or two on site for possibly 2 days, I could free up 16 rooms to put ceiling grid in. So we're on the verge of some areas, but there's other areas that one of the things we're dealing with, quite a few of the items that we can do would require 2 men and not be able to maintain the 6-foot distance between them. You can't hang 30 feet drywall 30 feet in the air with one guy. So we're not sure where that lies. That's going back for review amongst several people as to if there's a way to get around that. If they're wearing the proper PPE, they have masks on, they might be able to work side by side. That question's not been answered yet, but we are pursuing that.
Say again? That wasn't us? Okay.
Can I just ask Gary one more question? And
Sure.
I know this is off the wall, and I know it might not be analogous, but has he ever dealt with a situation like this before? I'm not saying obviously a pandemic, but where a project had to be shut down for a time, not due to maybe weather or something like that, that they had to make a contingency plan.
No, sir, I have not, and I hope I never do again.
I hear you on that one.
All righty. Well, next on the agenda, I have asked Patty, Brad, and Michelle to just walk the board through what we're doing for continuity of education. Right now, we have pretty much 7,600 kids that should be in class to some degree at some level from home. And if we could, I'd like to Patty just start with what the elementary is doing, then we'll go to Michelle, then we'll go to Brad.
Dr. P, if you're done with me, I'm going to let you guys enjoy your meeting. You have a good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Gary.
you, Gary.
You too.
Are you ready for me to start, Dr. P?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So one of the problems with the elementary is that we didn't have a platform in place in order for principals and teachers to collaborate. So the first thing we did is we had to build Google Classrooms so that they would know where to place their materials, how they could meet together without meeting together. So we asked Nick, our instructional coach, to our technologies instructional coach, to provide professional learning on Google Classroom, because many of those elementary teachers did not know how to use Google Classroom because that's not pertinent to what they're doing. So so the first thing Nick did is he did a training with our principals, and then those principals turned that training around for our teachers so they could actually walk through what the setup of the classroom looked like, so that they would know how to collaborate and where to put their materials once they did that. And then Nick met with, had open sessions, K-12 actually, where he would answer questions for all those teachers. Then the next thing that we did is I put the principals in grade level teams rather than building teams. And the purpose of that was because we had to build district-wide lessons rather than building lessons. It made the most sense that every child got the same lesson. And then certainly we had adaptations with the help of Michelle. So that being said, we wanted to get lessons out to our children. And so we have itinerant lessons for all of our music, art, library, PE. So what I did is ask them to do one lesson a week in each of those areas, as well as provide a video. In the content areas, they put together their lessons with all their resources day by day, as well as instructional videos. Our counselors put together lessons as well with instructional videos. The instructional videos are really important for children to see their teachers and keep that connection, especially in elementary. And so our next step was that once we figured out how we were going to do this, our principals met via Zoom with their grade level teams, made sure that they knew where they were going and what our due date was. Paula and Gloria, Haley, and I met with Gloria to help them build the website to place the lessons. which were very important, as well as the videos. They're on our website, but then they have to be accessed then through YouTube. So through our YouTube site. To provide the best, it would be great if everyone had access to the internet, but they don't. So we had to build packets for everyone. We do have 43 teachers, elementary teachers, using Google Classroom like the junior high school is doing, which is helpful, but those parents still want packets. That's the big thing. Everyone wants a packet. So after we built it and we had the platform, which was our YouTube and our website, then we needed to coordinate everything. How were we going to distribute? So we decided we would distribute on Mondays. Our first time we distributed it at every elementary, and we could not secure social distancing. Parents didn't really help us cooperate with that. So we had to go back to the drawing board. Last week we made made 2,000 packets, and we had 1,800 distributed last Monday. And so I felt really good about that, because those packets then went out to as many families as we certainly could do that. And those were by families. So that was good. I have mailed some as needed if we have some homeless children. And so I've had to mail those. And so as the secretaries come in, we mail those out and get those out. Communication's a huge tool. At the secondary, Lori can handle her communication and Andy can handle his communication. But being grade level, we needed another system. And one thing that I've used for 4 years is our curriculum update. And so that works very well. So I send that out every evening to all teachers so that everybody gets the same message. Principals then the next morning go over their responsibilities for that morning via a Zoom with them. And then teachers communicate with their families. And then at the end of the day, I meet with all of the principals again via the phone bridge or Zoom meeting. That way we can get any questions answered that teachers needed throughout the various grade levels, or parents needed, or any kind of clarification. So we did need to make some adjustments this week. Because of the lack of social distancing last week, we were very concerned by that. So this week we have 4 sites, and they are the Jaffa Moss. We did 2 hours this morning, one at 9 o'clock and one at noon. And we had about 400 families come through during those 2 hours. Logan also was a site today. They had about 250 families come through. At the junior high school from 11 to 1, we had over 220 packets picked up there. And then this evening, we have 6 to 7. Right now, underneath the bridge, we have a team giving out packets. And I don't know what that is, because I'm with you. So we did make some changes, going to a planned instruction model. Because we were doing review of materials last week. So we started doing more instructional videos. So every content area put together 5 videos for this week daily. And so that's 20 videos right there. And as well as our itinerants and our counselors. And the music teachers go crazy. They are performing. So they're still doing their music lessons and everything. So, and then we used an activity board, which are lessons that tie back to the videos. So, and this week we did 1 packet with a composition book that could be used K to 12. And then that made the process a little easier. So, and as parents contact us, we're still receiving phone calls and answering those. So parents can, if they need further questions, answer to their children on how to do something, we have our phone bridge that we use, that teachers are manning that with an appointment. So we're trying to reach out every way we can. Our teachers are Zooming, they're using Remind, they're using Dojo, they're emailing. And then we have the phone bridge and certainly phone calls. So that's where we are in elementary. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Patty, is there a system set up for parents to give feedback? For example, too much work, not enough work, right amount, and same way with the level of the work?
I can tell you that parents are very good at calling me, emailing their teachers and all of that. Any feedback that they're giving, that comes directly back through their principals and teachers at this point. And me. I mean, I probably fielded 15 calls today. So last week they were overwhelmed with work. That was overwhelmed. So it's difficult, Dr. Malloy, to communicate. We're trying to chase our children down. So anyone that the teachers have not made contact with, principals are calling and sending letters to make sure that we're trying to make sure that all of our children get their materials. So
do we know anything about how the grading is going to work on all this for elementary?
Yes, we do. Dr. Prieto is going to be sending that out tomorrow. And we had a team meet this morning and decide how we would be doing that. And that would actually be K-12. So at this point, for safety reasons, at this point, we've asked that they not return their packets, and that they just keep working on their packets. We told them they can use a notebook to enter their things from the website and so on, because we don't have a way to collect it safely.
Okay. No, that's like the biggest question that I'm getting asked about, like, is it going to count for anything? What's the grading process? That sort of thing. So
yeah. Dr. Prieto, I think Brad's going to be speaking to that. And we will be following the same format.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about grading. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
We've had a lot of discussions about grading. Brad's going to go on. He's going to discuss it specifically because it becomes a question of, first of all, can we reach every child? Do they have the ability to get online, or are they doing everything paper and pencil? So there's a lot of drivers to that, and Brad's going to spend a chunk of his time discussing that. So does anybody have any more questions for Patty except for grading?
Patty, you might have touched on this. I think I caught the tail end of it. We're printing up, I thought you said the one was 1,800 packets. Now, how many of the parents, we print out 1,800. Do we know at the end of the day how many of those were actually distributed?
Oh, we distributed 1,800 last week.
So we got them all out.
We printed 2,000 and we got out 1,800.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any issue of, all these families that don't have internet access and we're printing them out, and basically then they're not picking them up, or any issues. We're not having that issue.
Honestly, I will tell you what, they're picking up whether they have internet access or not, because they don't want to print or can't print. And that's fine. We printed, we had principals the first week printing for 8 hours on Saturday. And I was here doing the same. So, and yet on Friday, we printed for Thursday and Friday, we printed for 12 hours.
Well, that's awesome. Not the printing, but I'm glad to see that people are picking up the packets and using them. That's awesome.
Yeah, and even the folks that did not get out last week, we kept those over at the junior high so that they could pick. Like some gentleman said when I was distributing at Jaffa today, and he said, I didn't get last week's. I said, no problem, just hop over there from 11 to 1. So we have an AmeriCorps over there working to distribute last week's lessons as well.
Nice to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This week, we changed the packet structure. Last week, it was a packet for every grade. This year, it's a bigger packet for all 6 grades, K through 6. So it's a different structure, but it means if I have a family with 4 kids in elementary school, if they're in different grades, they only need one packet because they basically just pull it apart. Whereas last week we were given 1,800 packets. This week we're probably gonna be around 1,000, because instead of having to hand someone 3 or 4 packs, we can hand them one. So
And that
it's-
was based upon feedback from families that they were completely overwhelmed last week. So that's why we went to that format with videos instead. Because, and also teachers need to do the direct instruction through those videos before the children, because it's new learning. It wasn't review or practice like it was last week. So we had to change the format, and that was recommendation from families as well as from teachers.
Our biggest concern is with the families that don't have internet, and that our standard forms of communication, they don't have access to. So we've actually looked at alternative sources, like getting information out to churches, because churches have phone systems and calling apparatus, where if we can get information in the part of their tree, they can in turn disperse that out and hopefully hit more parents that we might not hit just with our structure, by using some of the other social structures in the community to be able to contact and get those people to understand and be able to respond to us, to tell us what their needs are. Okay, Michelle.
Good evening. I think before I start, I just want you to know that our instructors and our families are actually working together very well to try to tackle this challenge of continuing the education at home. It's pretty difficult for us sometimes, given the varying disabilities of our children, and they've done a great job. One of the first things that we did as a special education department was to reach out to our families the first week that the teachers were back, to take a look at who has internet access, who has devices, who might need phone conversation lessons, who would need things mailed, who can pick up at the grab and go sites. And we even asked who has access to channel 13 in case we, for reaching our families. And so after we did that, the instructors started to develop their lessons. And the very first week in the elementary, we followed Mrs. Burlingame's pattern, where our special education instructors were working with the education instructors to provide accommodations and modifications to the lessons that went out. And for our children who needed more, who have a more significant disabilities, teachers were contacting them, and sometimes they had to spend some time talking with children as well as the parents, because there were some new things that we were going to have to rely on the parents to implement, since we didn't have a one-on-one instructor there to assist them. So we spent a little bit of time talking to the parents and the children to try to meet that need. And then some of our instructors spent some time doing what we call pairing, where children were just getting used to seeing their or hearing their instructors, seeing them in this new format because it was something new. And we've had great feedback from our families, especially from our children who are in our full-time autistic support programs. Our teachers started with just creating some circle time videos to bring a little bit of normalcy back to those families. And we've got great feedback on that. The children were very comforted and watched those videos over and over and over again. They were just excited to see their teachers. And that's just a routine that they're used to every day. So we started with those kinds of things before moving forward. We also provided activity boards for families that were differentiated, so that they could go through and choose items on those boards. That was something that would be a little easier for families to implement at home before getting into more difficult material. So we did that. And then knowing, we were going to move forward into planned instruction, now we're starting to take a look at some of our intervention programs. And that gets a little more challenging for us, because intervention programs rely heavily on the student's response to instruction. So we're going to do the best we can with that. We started this week taking a look at Foundations, which is one of our kindergarten, second grade programs that works on basic phonics and literacy skills. And teachers did a great job. They made some videos for those. They also gave us materials that we could mail out to families. And we really have depended heavily on mailing out things, because the first week at the grab and goes, Parents did have to sign that they received packets, but they're not doing that because of the safety concerns now. So if families need something mailed to them, we will mail them out of our special education office to make sure that those families are getting the materials they need to work with their children. So we started out with some foundations, and those videos were very basic review, which is nice because families are also going to get to see how our teachers teach and how they word things for their children. And then we provided the activities for those. We also have teachers in our Wilson practice. There are 8 of those teachers, and we got out those materials. I delivered those materials to families over the weekend. We need to see what we can do with that. It's very different when you don't have the child sitting in front of you. So we just want to pilot that this week with those 8 instructors to see what they can accomplish in this type of format, whether it's via Zoom or phone, just to see how that goes before we try to roll that out to a larger group. And then we're also starting to work on our Number Worlds program, which is our math intervention. And again, teachers are just, they're in groups, they're working with that material to see, what they're able to do via online or through handouts that we can mail out to families, because again, there are parts of it that are games. So that makes it a little more difficult because again, the instructor has to be there to provide that feedback to the children, and that becomes very difficult. So we're gonna try those pieces coming up next week so that we can provide a little more intense service to our students. And then our children who are in full-time programs, they're going to continue moving forward. We have the assistance of our state consultants in our autistic support programs, and they're giving us some feedback and letting us know what's being done across the state to reach those children. As you may know, some of those children are very difficult to keep their attention even when you're one-on-one with them. So this is even becoming more difficult whenever families are trying to do this in the home. So we're trying to reach out to the families and the caregivers who are there to give them some guidance on how they can work with their children, and then just showing them and modeling for them some of the things that we can do. In the secondary setting, we have the Google Classroom platform that Brad will probably talk about. Many of the teachers in the secondary setting are using that to push out their assignments. And then we have teachers that are calling families, touch base with the students as well as the parents. And in some cases, they're looking at activities of daily living that can be done around the home, things that children can practice. So they're working on all of those skills. And then we're gearing up to try to move forward, which is going to be a challenge because we don't have the one-on-one support that we typically have in a school setting. But we're going to move forward. We're going to make our good faith effort and do the best we can. And our instructors are phenomenal.
Thank you, Michelle. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle?
I just have one. I know that springtime is like a huge time for the IEP evaluations. So how are we handling that at this time?
Yeah, well, what's happening right now, anything that's coming into the office, we are opening, dating, and school psychologists are going to reach out to those families to let them know that we've received their documents if they have given us permission to evaluate. But we can't do anything with those until we actually have access to the child. So we're going to need extensions on those. Are you talking, Kelly, about the preschool evals?
No, I'm even thinking like when you have your IEP in the spring and you go into the school and meet with, in my instance, it's the speech teacher. And I'm not concerned for my own benefit, but I'm just asking in general, like how all those IEPs are being handled, I guess. Not necessarily for new kids, but the existing students.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're looking to roll that out here a little bit later. We're still waiting for some guidance from the Bureau of Special Ed. They've sent a few things to us about how to address COVID-19 in our IEPs. We're still waiting to see what they're requiring of us, whether they're going to need us to do NOREPs and things like that. But we'll have a meeting, I think, on Wednesday to talk about those kinds of things. But we're looking here in the next probably 2 weeks or so to start rolling out our IEP plan. So we're going to have to go back to around March 13th when school closed, and we're going to have to create a new IEP schedule. And then we'll follow our procedures like we always do by sending out the invitations. But the difference will be we'll have to do those via phone or via Zoom or whatever means that a family may have to participate. And we know we won't have signatures until we mail those types of things out, just like on initial evaluations. We're not permitted to move forward with providing services until we have a signature and approval from a family. But I think given the circumstances, if we have that meeting and that parent is on board, I'm going to err on the side of providing those services until we get that signature back through the mail from that family, because I don't want the child to go without services because of what's happening right now and that lag in time.
Has our,
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were in compliance with, I mean, I know this is an extenuating circumstance, but in compliance with all the dates and whatnot, so.
Yeah, we're not going to be exactly in compliance with those dates, and the Bureau is well aware of that. The Bureau's guidance has been, it's sort of rare, it's very rare. Their first message to us was safety, second was instruction, and third was compliance. Usually it's compliance is number one. So all we're gonna have to do is go back and tell that child's story within the present levels of their IEP to explain what happened and why an IEP that may have been due March 18th wasn't completed. So we just have to address that in our present levels and then talk about what we did in the meantime until school reopens, and we'll be able to implement that plan again.
Michelle, I'm a biggie on getting something in writing. And I know the legalities of the IEP process and how our district could be held liable. Has anyone, I don't know who's on the call here on our legal end. Is Carl in here or?
I'm here. This is Elizabeth. I'm here.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Muting myself.
Has anyone run this by you about our compliance on the IEPs when it comes to our liability?
Yeah, this is a constant source of discourse. Our office has been issuing client alerts. We've been doing our best to keep all of the school districts updated, and we are also following the various guidance issued by the Bureau, by the U.S. Department of Education, by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and I can assure you that we're on top of it and assisting the administrators to ensure that they're in compliance. Everyone is adjusting as we go here, and that includes these entities that enforce the compliance, as Michelle mentioned. So we are keeping everyone as up to date as we can as there are updates that come forth, but the compliance issues are something that everyone's recognizing has to be somewhat relaxed.
Thank you. That was a concern. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Michelle? Okay, let's move on to Brad.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to start with a secondary update very briefly. Our focus this week is student participation and engagement. Quite simply, our goal is to, number one, get as many students actively engaged and participating as possible. Our second goal is to make sure that we're continuing to provide a quality virtual experience through Google Classroom and our other platforms with well-planned lessons and activities that allow students to both sustain, learn, and further their learning. So that being said, we have adopted a hybrid model of integrating enrichment and review, as well as planned instruction when deemed appropriate for the individual or group of students that we are working with. Very successful last week. We are currently identifying any student at the junior high or high school level that did not engage with us last week. We're doing that by talking to teachers, having them submit lists of students that did not respond to notifications and other items technologically. We are also looking at identifying what students did not pick up and or have access to a device or internet. Last week, we started to put together a plan to address those students' true hardship cases where they do not have access to internet. We are purchasing mobile hotspots that will be deployed to individual students on an as-needed basis. We are also looking at long-term, adding to that supply of hotspots on a lease basis that we will be able to distribute to students in the event that we continued after the third date at this point. We talked this morning about the end of the marking period and grades, so I'll touch base on that very briefly. The third marking period will end this Thursday. We have given our teachers the latitude over the last week and then currently this week to finalize everything that needs to be finalized for the third marking period so that we can begin the process of closing out that marking period. We will then give teachers 6 days to submit grades. That date will close on April 15th. Our technology department push out grade verifications to all of our teachers on the 16th, which way they will then verify grades and comments for the marking period. And we will post report cards then a week from Friday. So elementary will be picking and mailing home all report cards. Secondary will be posting grades to Skyward, and we will print and mail home report cards to any family that requests that. We'll put out middle of this week if they have a request for a hard copy report card and do not have access to Skyward to see posted grades. We are more than send a hard copy report card. The fourth marking period will begin then on Friday, even though it is a day off calendar for grading purposes. Now, what that will look like, after great conversation and collaboration, we have decided that the fourth marking period K to 12 will be based on a pass-fail. Any student that accumulates a 60% on evaluated work, anything 60 and above, will receive a passing grade in the fourth marking period. Any student that achieves a 59% or below will receive a failing grade for the fourth 9 weeks. How we will calculate that into their grade. A passing grade will be reflected as a 100% for the mark. A failing grade will be represented as a 50% for the fourth marking period. We've arrived at this based on the fact that that will allow every student that has a possibility of being successful in passing their courses for the year to have the capability of doing so by engaging, participating, and working satisfactorily. This will be K to 12. We will do this at the end of the fourth marking period with a grade override with all of the staff members. It will work within our technology and within our grading system. We will, however, be asking for a 1-year waiver current student evaluation system so that our language will represent that for the 19-20 school year, these provisions are being put in place for the fourth marking period because they are contrary to what we currently have in place. Some of the little additions to that would be senior project. We are asking for a 1-year hold on students in this current senior class being required to submit a senior project as a graduation requirement. And there are a couple other items that will be on the April 20 board agenda that reflect that. Looking at all the different options, we felt like this was the most fair and equitable opportunity for all students to have the greatest chance to be successful. We will closely monitor how any change in class rank, any change in weighted GPA, as we will compare the third marking period with the fourth marking period. And at this point, we don't feel, because we're grading everyone equitably, that it will have a huge impact on the numbers and or ranks. Once again, what teachers will do, they will put out assignments, activities on a 0 to 10 basis. The point value of assignments will be anywhere from 0 to 10. They can continue to assign point values that will convert to a percentage for their fourth marking period grade. If that percentage is anywhere from 60 to 100, they will receive 100 as their grade for the fourth 9 weeks. If that grade is below 60, they will receive a 50% for those 9 weeks. Every consideration will be given to students that have difficulty with logging on, with technological issues, access issues, device issues. To ensure that we have the most limited issue as possible, we are ensuring that we are going to get devices to all students. Our bus company is working with our administration to deliver devices that have yet to be picked up. Our administrators and myself are individually delivering devices to students and ensuring access, along with our available hotspot at the Roosevelt parking lot and ocean of the Atlantic broadband offer. We are also looking at deploying the individual mobile hotspots to families in need. That is a basic summary of secondary and the overall continuing education plan and grading plan. Any questions at this point?
If I may, can you go over how we're using our attendance people and how we're using Skyward to ensure participation?
So at the end of last week, we conducted a survey of all teachers to provide us with lists of students that have yet to engage, which is demonstrated by their access of their Google Classroom. Currently, the junior high school has a list of about 125 students that have yet to engage, and the school was about 3 times that amount. However, with the CTC starting their online learning platform today, we feel like that number will be significantly decreased now that students have a full day of instruction to look forward to in their schedule. So our clerical at both the junior high school and the high school are making individual calls to that entire list of students that have yet to engage to find out why they've not engaged. If it's an access issue, if it's a Wi-Fi issue, if it's a device concern, whatever that may be. We are then working with tech and special ed and all other departments, triage those individual cases and come up with a solution that will work for the family. We hope by the end of this week to have that number significantly decreased to where we have nearly every student engaging actively in our online platforms with full access, everything that every other student has the ability to access now. Our teachers continue to develop their curriculum with the transition and move to a hybrid model of both enrichment and review, and now adding in planned instruction. We will ensure that we are still being rigorous with the curriculum that we are offering, and that we're offering FAPE, which is a free and appropriate public education, to all students with a special special eye to our special ed population to make sure that our delivery and modification meet their individual needs.
So Brad, what percentage is that, like, overall, would you say that are participating?
Well, at the high school, we were right around 2/3, about 67% based on Friday's numbers. The junior high school is mid-80s, which is phenomenal. When we looked at this last week, we were hoping to get 50% in week 1. Have those numbers where they were at the end of last week is a very positive sign. I think our promotion efforts and social media efforts and getting the word out to students has been phenomenal, thanks to Paul and the administrators. Word of mouth is spreading that that it's not an optional platform, that it is, we are requiring it. It is mandatory that our students engage as school is back in session. And I know that was kind of, some of the calls that I was receiving were, have to do this. Well, the answer to that was yes. We are resuming school as last Monday, and the expectation is that students are engaging and putting forth a positive effort with all of their coursework.
Just to give everybody an idea, 7th grade had what, about 25 kids not check in last week?
24 total in the entire grade level of over 600.
So basically 7th grade had a 95 to 96% attendance rate. which is actually better than a regular day of school. So we're reaching kids, and it's going to take some time to get to all of the children, but we are very successfully reaching the vast majority.
Do
I mean,
the
I'll give-
parents
Yeah,
know that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just had a question. Are the parents aware that this is mandatory? This isn't if you want to or not?
That has been our consistent message. That is what we've put out. Our motion and any phone call that we've received that has asked that question, we have reiterated that. Now, I will tell you, we've had a few calls where parents have expressed personal hardship, where they are working 2 shifts or they're working extended hours, and that they're utilizing some of their secondary students to help with childcare for their younger students. And we've reassured them that we will be as flexible as we can to individual circumstances where they have a true hardship, where students are, they're engaged in other life-saving activities at the house. And we are sensitive to that. We realize those situations are going to exist. So we will work with those families to put together a timeline to where their students, or help support them in any way that we can, so that their children are able to continue with their education.
And are the seniors running into any problems with things that they're going to need at the end of the year, being that school ended so abruptly?
Well, let me touch base on that, because that was kind of my last point, is that at this point, the state put out guidance on graduation this morning, and, requirements for graduation, credit accumulation, all of those things. The tenor of that message suggested that they are anticipating that this will likely be extended. So we talked that we are going to look at a variety of different options for a virtual graduation, or some other option will happen on June 5th. With the calendar that we approved at the last board meeting, our instruction will continue until and through June 5th, with targeted graduation date of June 5th for our seniors. Now, they're very frustrated. I mean, obviously, look forward to once in a lifetime events like prom and award ceremonies, all of those things. And we're going to look at creative ways to where, is there something we can do to supplement that in the event that we do not back to school. And included in that is not ruling out the possibility of doing things into the summer. Yearbook distribution was one of the ones I had talked to a couple folks about today. We've come up with a plan where yearbooks are being distributed to seniors before they leave, which is terrific. However, part of that process is kids getting to sign and, share with one another. So how can we facilitate a yearbook distribution in a meaningful way to our seniors in a timely fashion? So these are conversations that I've had with Mr. Neely and the high school administration and teachers to find out what are the ideas that are out there. I think once we have and unfortunately, if we get a more definitive direction towards the end of the month as to what the rest of the school year look like, we'll be able to plan more definitively. Right now, it's still a little up in the air. I just signed today to have our invitations for graduation printed, because the hope is that we're going to move forward with that plan until we're told otherwise. It won't go to waste, because either way, graduation will be on June 5th. So that is the plan moving forward. And we're going to make it as meaningful and as special to our seniors.
Brad, Brad, going back to that issue of some students needing help at home, their hardship cases, would there be any benefit to have those students enrolled in our cyber program? Would that be more flexible?
Honestly, essentially, they're all enrolled in our cyber.
True, they are, but I mean, officially, into that curriculum.
Honestly, I can think of, I think we can discuss that. I don't know that there's any clear-cut benefit to being enrolled in cyber. I think within the model that we have right now, continuing education plan, incorporating both planned instruction and the enrichment model. Teachers are doing an outstanding job of individually reaching out to students and having direct communication. Our special ed staff and our ESPs are now being deployed to individual students and families that need extra assistance, whether it's just completing daily activities and assignments, modifying any kind of we have in place, and or just providing like tutoring sessions and that more face-to-face that they need.
If I may, Frank, what we've tried to do with our transition was to create as close to an online model for the regular classroom teacher as we have in the cyber, so that our cyber teachers could actually help our other teachers build their classrooms and establish their curriculum and their planned instruction. So they are very similar at this point right now.
And the other thing is the classroom teacher knows the student best. If we put them into a cyber schedule, they would likely be assigned to a teacher that they may not have or have ever had. The closest thing to remaining consistent is for those students' instruction to be delivered by their classroom teacher, because the ACA model, we use Google Classroom to deliver instruction through that same platform.
I have a question. Do we think we'll lose any students to cyber school next year because of this, that they like it and they'll stay with cyber school?
We can't, I don't know if we can answer that one, Ed. At this point in time, we're putting all our pieces together to be able to deliver the instruction. Cyber schools right now are not allowed to enroll kids. They're not allowed to add anyone to their roles, so they aren't allowed to cherry pick, so to speak, which keeps the playing field level. And I, quite frankly, I think what we're doing with our pieces, with our teachers and what we're making happen from a cyber standpoint, we're in a very, very good position. If anything, we may see some students doing more hybrid, where they're taking certain classes online and they're taking other classes in brick and mortar.
So if the school's delayed, we can use the same program or no, the state won't allow it?
We should, I would like to think that we're going to start school on time in the fall. I mean, that's the worst case scenario of the worst case scenario right now. And I just don't want to think about that right now, Ed. If that's fair enough. I mean, if we get that far, we're going to be, let's just say we're all going to be feeling the stress. Okay, if I can, we have a healthcare thing we want to talk about that Camilla wants to talk about. And I just want to talk a little bit about what we're doing, essential operations. We have minimized our workforce on site. We have adjusted hours of custodians and of maintenance. We're doing everything we need to do to make sure that everything is taken care of, but at the same time that we're keeping people safe. Secretaries are working from home. Attendance secretaries, they're all working. They're all going to be working tomorrow morning if they weren't working this morning. Calling kids, calling families. We're doing everything we can to make sure that all of our kids get what they need. The lunch program is working pretty well. If I can ask Camilla real fast, how many lunches did we send out today? Camilla?
You need to ask Sue. She's on it.
Susan, what's our count today?
We sent out over 900 today.
900 lunches. So was this their biggest day?
Yes.
Okay. The thing is significant about that is last Monday was a big day. We were at 700 and some last Monday. The thing was last Monday was when we did the packet handout at the same time. So they were on site when we were passing out lunches. Today, the packets at the buildings, first of all, the packets didn't get passed out at every building. And second of all, those hours didn't necessarily line up with the lunch distribution. I mean, we went 9 to 10 and noon to 1. So, I mean, to have 900 plus is huge. And we're reaching a lot of kids, reaching a lot of families. Just wanted to touch base. Obviously, we are making masks. We have over 44 volunteers making masks. These are social grade. These are not N95 or any of that kind of thing. They're just social grade. It's cloth. It's what's specified as, to avoid, the moisture or the mucus, transfer of virus. We have 44 dozen or more, maybe over 500 of these masks are going to be made. We're going to be passing them out to anyone who's on site, who works for us, people who are running transportation, the transportation, everybody who's delivering lunches, etc. We've got face guards. We had those when we were passing out the packets today. We have face guards coming from Catalyst Space. We're buying 50 from them because anything we buy online or anything we can buy nationally, the turnaround time is 2, 3, 4 weeks. Catalyst Space is basically manufacturing these for us for pretty much the cost we get them online for. And they're going to have 50 of them for us on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. So we're moving forward with a lot of those pieces, making sure that our people who are on site have the protective gear they need to have. And in turn, we have what we need to take care of our kids.
Question I have, Chuck. We have a 3D printer at the CTC. Do we have any in the school district?
Yes.
Are they sophisticated enough to crank out face masks?
You mean like you're talking about the
Plastic, yeah.
plastic shields. We don't have people on site running them at this point. We'll be, by tomorrow at lunchtime, we will be in great shape for face shields. So we should be fine. But we could have, yes, but we didn't have the design. Catalyst Space had the design and they were readily available, and that's the way we went.
Okay.
That's a great idea, but I would have needed to start that process a week sooner. I just didn't even cross my mind. I don't know if we have the ability to turn out as many as Catalyst can, but we're going to be in good shape tomorrow.
It's a good step. It's a good step. We're still letting people know they have to do all the other precautions, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want anyone getting a false sense of security walking around with a mask on.
Absolutely. We hand sanitizer, washing hands, etc., keeping the 6-foot distance. It's a process. I basically said, if you're on site, you have to have the mask on, and that kind of brings it home that this is important. These things, yeah, I know I got my little Altoona here, but these things, they're hot. I mean, they'll warm up your face. And when it's 70-some degrees outside, people don't want to wear them. But if we're going to be interacting, we have to do that, because especially if we're bringing people in.
Just another question on it, Chuck, and I may be taking this way too far, but I know a lot of businesses are doing a check before people come in, taking temperatures, asking questions, those kinds of things. Are we taking any of those measures where we're taking temperatures to make sure that we're not adding to this problem?
At this point in time, we are not taking temperatures. No. But if somebody feels in any way, shape, or form they're under the weather, we're just saying don't come in. But we are not taking temperatures at this point.
Okay.
We don't, the situation we have is we don't have a lot of public interaction. My thing is to limit the interaction between anyone in the office. Like right now in this wing, where there's usually 30 people, today at max we had 4, maybe 5. And just keeping people apart and keeping them, masking them up and keeping them separate is a big piece of it. And then by limiting the number of custodians in the building, limiting the number of other staff to the bare minimum, we are maximizing our effectiveness at keeping any chance of a spread down.
Well, and I guess we would go back to our prior conversation about the school project and construction workers come in. I'm just assuming that's going to be part of their protocol. So that's why I was wondering.
Well, we're working on those pieces. We've talked to different aspects. We've talked to the nurses. The nurses shed some light on some other issues they may have with doing certain things, to have them on site. Because if we compromise our nurses, what happens if we have an issue here and they get called into service by the hospital? Well, now we've taken them out of commission. So there's a lot of different things you gotta weigh the pros and cons to make sure we're not making a bigger problem down the road. So It's one of the reasons everybody's wearing these. Do we have to? No, but we're going to. Okay, Camilla.
Just a quick
Camilla?
update on where we are in this transition to a new third-party administrator. At the last, excuse me, full board meeting or regular board meeting, you approved changing our third-party administrator from UPMC to Trustmark. So that means we no longer have a network. We're open. Every place is our network. We also talked about this reference-based pricing part, and that is a different vendor who negotiates those prices and checks all the bills when they come in. And there were 5 or 6 different companies that we could choose from. We picked the 2 largest that we thought would have the capacity to service our account properly. We've been in conversations with them. We've been on video chats, emails back and forth. And at the April board meeting, we are going to present for your approval. We're recommending AMPS. They have a good relationship with our current, with our new third-party administrator, Trustmark. And they're proposing a hybrid model that will save us approximately $1.2 million. And one of our main goals is to provide as little disruption with our members as possible. And in this hybrid model, it includes it's called a PHCS. It's a physicians network. And Blair Medical and Mainline Medical are part of this PHCS. So when we have these new cards and it says PHCS, Blair Medical and Mainline, to name a couple of them, there are others locally, will have to take our members. Without being part of that network, we did run the risk. This is something that Doug Rosenberry brought up as a question when Pat came in. Can they refuse to serve us? And by joining this, having this PHCS on that card, they can't refuse us. And the hospital being the only hospital in town, they can't refuse us either. So we feel like this is going to be the least disruption, and we will have more details about it. We can talk about it at finance if you want to go into more details, but I know here I am, the tail of the meeting again, and I don't want to keep anybody. So if you have specific questions, please let me know.
I have a question.
No longer UPMC, correct?
We are no longer under the UPMC benefit third-party administrator. Here's an interesting thing we asked for today. We are trying to be able to audit the medical costs, and UPMC was willing to work with us 2 weeks ago when they thought they were still in the game. And they were acting as if they were going to provide this information to this company that's going to actually do the medical cost audit. Well, they know now that we aren't going to go with them. And their response to Maureen's question on these different pieces that she was asking for, like their build costs and their actual costs, that's proprietary. That's proprietary. Everything was proprietary, and they refused to release the information. So they're just so, they think they're the only game in town, and we need to try something different to save money.
Can they legally?
As far as I know.
There are things that they can protect, but it doesn't change the established prices that the Medicare sets up annually, that their fees are based off of, which is how the price works.
I have a question. If someone retires and moves out of the state, can they still get health care through the school, or do they still have that?
Yes, it actually is an expanded, more than what we have now. And if they go to a facility out of state, we'll still, this AMPS will be in offering a fair price to the facility. And it will be based off the Medicare rate, and they'll negotiate the price.
So actually, we have a more universal coverage than we had prior, starting July 1.
But if it ever changed back and they were retired under us, they'd still be covered?
Correct. We will always design a plan that covers our retirees. And it's not just retirees, it's students who go out of state or get married and move out of state and are still under 26. Our employees can keep their children on until they're 26, whether they're married or not, and no matter where they live.
How's open enrollment going to work for the healthcare with us being closed? You know?
Well, we always mail out the packet to our support staff, custodians and laborers, because they don't always have technology. They don't always have smartphones. They don't have access that some of the administrators and teachers do. So we will mail them a packet. We mail packets to the retirees. We are still in the planning phases of it. We may end up having to mail out more than normal. We may have to mail it out for SEAs, but the SEAs are staying in very good contact with the special ed department. So we're anticipating at this point, our plan is to work through the special ed department to email the open enrollment materials to them. Then we mail the materials to our custodians and laborers. Then we also email the principals, their secretaries, all the other clerical staff are still checking things from home, working from home. So at this point, we feel like our communications will still be able to be accomplished through our Skyward employee access, as well as emails and principals touching base with their staff to make sure that everyone got the word, and working through the unions as well.
So would people just mail back their paperwork then?
To be determined.
Okay, sorry, I just
probably
curious.
Probably that has some issues in itself, but we usually avoid letting someone email and fax us, because we get into the, oh, I faxed that to you, and if we don't receive it, we don't know that they sent it. It's the same with mail. We're still putting it together.
Hopefully by the time we're ready to kick off the open enrollment, we won't have as many restrictions in place. And I can see the governor extending the school closure till the end of the school year, but not closing all the businesses as tightly as we have. It's going to be a question of how the infection curve works in the state of Pennsylvania. Can somebody mute their mic? Okay. Just sound like I got a rumble here. Was that you, Ed? You just haven't. No, it wasn't you. You're muted anyways. Okay, so we have some of these things we just can't give you an answer, because we can't make a firm decision until more pieces fall into place. But our intent, we will keep you posted as to what we're doing, and I'll everyone and ensure that everything moves as smoothly as possible.
This is Ron. I got a medical question for Camille. Camille, how about if our employees get referred to Hershey or Mount Nittany?
Part of it. It's included. In fact, they go to Mount Nittany and Hershey now.
Good.
But they'll have better access with the new plan.
It's not out of network. Everything is now part of the network.
Okay.
I mean, with this
Thank you.
New plan.
Any other questions for Camilla?
Yeah, I got one and it goes back to a long time ago. Just a question. I know we're printing out a lot of things. I know we usually do in a school day, but what is all this printing costing?
I can say this I can interject this. We are printing much less now than we print on a normal school day.
Good.
Because all those machines that are running, we're not running through the reams and boxes or cases of paper like we would have if we were in school. But yes, with all these packets, we're probably talking 20 boxes of paper at a time. It's nuts. But you have to realize we could probably go through 100 boxes of paper district wide in a week, if not more than that in a week.
Camilla, how about that? What do you think of the money difference we're doing now that we're printing these?
We get monthly printing copier reports from Doing Better Business, and we will, as soon as we get the next report, we'll compare it to prior reports, and if we have it for the finance committee, we'll report it next week, and if not, we'll give it to Dr. P, and he can put it in one of his weekly updates as soon as we have the most current report.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Anything else, folks? Anything, Sharon?
No, I don't have anything else.
I'm sure there's something we're missing because we are all running pretty crazy to get things done. But hopefully we will keep everybody posted as things occur and keep everybody in the loop. Folks, do not be afraid if someone contacts you with an issue or a question. Don't be afraid to forward that to us because we can't fix it if we don't know it's broken. Okay?
Well, we said this before. Sharon pointed out how good you guys are doing. I just want all you administrators, please pass along the word. I understand the work you guys are doing. Please let that funnel down to the teachers. Let them know how impressed we all are at their efforts. I mean, they're outside of the box here. They've never done this before either. So let them, I'm totally impressed with the work that I see our teachers doing. It's incredible. So please spread that word down.
You betcha we will. Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
All right, everybody stay safe.
Okay, I guess meeting is adjourned then.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.